Welcome to the CU Try Show. We have been away for most of the summer on sort of a little summer sabbatical. And so I am so happy to be back. I'm Karen Sims with the Trauma and Resiliency Initiative. And today I have Lori Britt and Lisa Knight with the Youth Assessment Center on with me. Before we get going, I just always want to remind our guests that the views and the opinions of our guests are their own, and the show is made possible because of support we get from our funders. So without further ado, I am really happy. It's so funny, Lisa. I'm sorry, Lori and I have been sitting in meetings together with the Anti-Violence Initiative, and I frequently see her bubbling up with things to say or wanting to interject. And we were sitting in one meeting and I was like, I want to definitely have the opportunity to have this full and out loud conversation about your work, your vision for the work. And so I'm so happy you were able to make time.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for having me and my wonderful case manager, Lisa Knight. We always love to talk about YAC and all the amazing things that we are doing and want to do. So we love to be here and share with the platform. Thank you so much.
Well, let me have you introduce yourself, because some people have never heard of the Youth Assessment Center. Some people have, but maybe they knew it under Jonathan Westfield, because a lot of people knew him. So, but before we talk about the Youth Assessment Center, can you introduce yourselves and tell people sort of, or some people already know you, so it's reintroduction, but can you tell people who you are? Yeah.
Absolutely. So as Karen said, I'm Lori Britt, and I am the coordinator for the Youth Assessment Center. I've been with the Youth Assessment Center over a year now. Thank goodness that I knew Jonathan Westfield prior when I worked as a case manager in another division. And so just before I started the position, I got to, see him again and connect. And he gave me like some tips and some advice for taking this role on. And so I always carried that in my heart as I moved into this position to also celebrate his legacy with YAC and continue to do just as a good job as he has done. He's paved the way for me. So I am a native of Champaign-Urbana, and I've been in social services for well over 10 years. And I landed at Champaign County Regional Planning Commission with YAC, and I love my job. I love what I do. So thank you so much for having me again, Karen. I'm so happy to be here.
And when you meet her, so if you're a family sitting out there or a youth, when you meet Lori, you will know she's passionate about her work and improving outcomes for youth and families in the community. And I've had a chance to meet Lisa briefly, so please introduce yourself, Lisa.
I'm Lisa Knight. I've been with regional planning for about the last 8 years and with YAC for the last year. And I feel that everything that I've done in my career, my education's in psychology, and I have an MSW, and all of my career choices have led me to YAC. So I worked at DCFS for 15 years as a caseworker and investigator. And then I moved into doing community social work in Ireland, and with the WIOA program. I was with them for 7.5 years. And I was with the youth program. So all of it has kind of culminated into YAC, and we're able to provide so much help for youth. And I know Lori didn't mention it, but she's got an addictions background and anger management background that she's able to implement that with the kids and really help out a lot. Well, those are my two weaknesses. They're Lori's strengths, so we make a good partnership.
So I think that's a perfect segue, Lisa. So we've been using the acronym, or you've been using the acronym YAC, and throughout this conversation, you'll hear me say break things down, because I want to make sure that if you're like out at home and you're like, I've never heard of these terms that we always use in community, we're going to have you break it down. So what is the Youth Assessment Center? and maybe even say, what do you think some misconceptions are? So tell me what it is. And then we can have a second round where we talk about what people think it is and how it isn't what they think it is.
Lisa, I can start.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So in 2013, YAC, which stands for Youth Assessment Center, was founded. And in essence, what it is, it's a primary place for either the police or community members to make referrals for youth between the ages of 10 to 17. And what we do there is we work with our stakeholders, the police, state's attorney's office, the list goes on. If we get those referrals to help the youth with restorative justice, to rehabilitate them, to get them back on the right track. The most important thing is there's an agreement that is established. They work closely with the case manager. Our agreements run anywhere from 1 to 3 months. And there's terms and conditions on there. And based upon how the referral comes through, if it's a police referral, it's a little bit more refined in terms of the terms and conditions, and the police have to approve those. And it's a working agreement with all players involved, including the parents as well. And then with the other referrals, like the school or community referrals, we have a voluntary agreement. But again, it does have terms and conditions that we all agree upon. We sit down at the table and we discuss. And we talk about, what the end goal is. And so that is in essence how YAC is ran. The most important thing is that it is a relationship. It is not a dictatorship. It's not us telling you what you're going to do and you have to do it. It is voluntary. And at the end of the day, it's a conversation, and then it's a goal setting piece after that. And then we start the action steps to work towards what we all want to accomplish at the end. And what I really love about it is that when we get those police referrals, the police are really involved. They are there, they are supporting us, they are approving them. And if there's anything that's going on during the case or the time that we have the case open with us, we are always in frequent communication to make sure that restorative justice is actually achieved. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Lisa, that I may be missing?
I think you really covered it. The only thing that I would add is in our practice, we do have high limit setting and discipline with our agreements, that we stick to those agreements. And we also provide that high support, encouragement, and nurturing to get the best results through that restorative process.
So we're gonna keep playing with stuff, right? We're gonna keep breaking all these concepts down. So one of the things that I know historically people thought happened at the Youth Assessment Center. So, right, this is let's clarify, and then I want to talk about what restorative justice is, because a lot of people don't know. Yes. So in the beginning, right, people used to associate the Youth Assessment Center with a station adjustment. So so it used to be part of the court process, and it was sort of this if people didn't make qualifications for detention, people could sort of have this intermediary step where they had some police contact, but didn't get charges or weren't necessarily going to court. So it was sort of like a diversion. So I know we titled this An Ounce of Prevention. How much of that is still true, not true? Yeah, you know what I mean? Because things evolve over time. And is that the same thing or not?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So that is not a myth. All right. So it's still a part of that process.
Yes. We have station adjustments that we will, it's one of our agreements with the police referrals that we get. And in that station adjustment, we sit down and we talk about the terms and conditions that we want to fulfill. Again, it's an agreed upon agreement. Police officers sign off and approve those. And that is a great tool. It's an accountability tool as well. But it really says, we're going to divert from the criminal justice system. Here are the terms and conditions. Do you agree? And do you think you can do it? And then let's work through it together for the next 2 or 3 months. And then once it's successfully completed, we send it back to the police department with a closing letter. And we say they successfully completed our station adjustment. And that's a really good way for them to see that, all right, little Billy got in trouble. but he followed through with Yak. He was on a station adjustment. He successfully completed. If there is another police contact in the future, they can divert to that and say, well, he was on a station adjustment. There was a chance given. We did divert and we tried. And whatever they decide to do for the second or third or fourth occurrence, that's their jurisdiction. But we want to just make sure that we say, hey, this is what happened on our tank, and this is how successful they were. And I think it's a really great tool to continue to use for accountability as well.
Okay, so that's still true. What do you think are misconceptions about like what Yak offers or who it's for or who you serve? Like where are there myths about what people expect to happen at the Youth Assessment Center?
I think people think that we have a cookie cutter approach to doing things. And the way Lori and I have worked, because it's almost like a new program with us, since we didn't have people around to show us their way, we were making our own way.
Okay.
And it's more of a clinical base, I feel, what we're doing now. It's very individualized to the youth. So we may have the same thing on a station adjustment. They may have an apology letter, have a reflections program, but those are tailored specifically to each child. We don't do counseling, but we do an awful lot of training to keep up on the newest, and any trainings that provide us with information that we can take and better help our clients. That's what we're going to go do.
Gotcha.
That's what I was going to say too, Karen, was that the biggest misconception that I've noticed is that they think that sometimes when they make a referral to Yak, that it could be a counseling aspect to it. And we don't provide counseling. So,
well, because I could imagine if people hear assessment, they think mental health assessment, right? And so I think like you're a place where you drop and say, is my kid got an issue? Or school could be like, does that kid have a problem? All right. So that's a helpful clarification. So very individualized, meeting people where they are, very partnership with all of the players in a youth or family's lives. So you mentioned a couple times that it's restorative. So I might have like heard restorative as just circles, but you talked about some stuff that wasn't sitting around in a circle. So explain to me what is restorative? What is that concept?
Would you like me to take that, Lori?
Sure, Lisa, go right on ahead.
Okay. So in restorative, you have a square where the police are punitive, they're high. What we're doing is we're not just setting the limits and punitive as the police are. We also put that layer of support, the nurturing, to combine with keeping them accountable. So we're taking kind of the best from everything and putting it all together to help the youth make a change in their life. So a lot of times, one of the things that we do specifically is helping the youth realize how they're affecting not only their community, not only the victim, but their future self, and how that comes about in their life to try to make different changes. And I just had a youth this last week go, Lisa, I was trying to get those school papers and I did just what you said. I was really nice. And they did exactly what you said they would. They gave me everything I needed. And so they're learning a different way to do things.
Absolutely. And it's so amazing, if I could brag on Lisa for a little bit, it's so amazing to see a youth come through the door that, is angry, defiant, doesn't believe that anything that was said in the police report was true because they have every excuse as to why it didn't happen. And then, within 2 to 3 months, I'll hear her on the phone, and she's doing that motivational interviewing, and she's coaching, and she's being an active listener. And by the time that she closes them and I see the email go out to the referral agency, it's just this story of how she was able to delve into those layers and really get the youth to think about their behavior and the impact it's had, not only on themselves, but on the people that, are in their family unit and on the community. So it's a restorative practice, not only with the youth, but also just helping them look at the bigger picture of how we restore our community, especially with everything that's going on in Champaign and, the violence and its uptick in that. So if we can have a change agent happen at YAC, where that kid comes in but leaves a different way, that really means a lot to me, just to watch that happen, that magic happen in our office with Lisa, for sure.
Wow. So I hear, right, restorative is a relational model, right? Because you've talked about that. It is incredibly individualized. It is capacity building and skill building. It has outcomes and consequences, but they are designed to learn and teach. It's not just purely punitive. You talked about it creates the opportunity for self-reflection so that people get a chance to sort of reflect on themselves, the impact, so empathy builds. So
Yes.
It sounds like that rather than just your classical punitive model where maybe there's just a punishment, that really this is a teaching and learning and growth opportunity so that, it's healing and reparative. Wow. So you must have a lot of really, really great stories and some challenges. I mean, because I'm imagining, one of the questions I wanted to ask is like, who's a good fit for your program? And I don't know if there's a good fit, but I think about people being at various stages of the change process.
Absolutely.
You mentioned motivational interviewing. And so I just wonder, like, who's a good fit and what's the good fit? And before I ask you that question, is the only way that people get in is through law enforcement?
No.
Okay.
No,
all right.
not at all.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So say more about that.
Yeah. So if anyone is even listening to this show now and you are a parent, or you are in some kind of social service field, you can call the Youth Assessment Center anytime, Monday through Friday, between 8 a.m. and 7:30. We're also open on Saturdays from 10:30 to 7 as well. And you can call and say, hey, I have a youth that I think may need some help. And me and Lisa will be available to listen to that and see how we can best assist.
Wow.
For sure.
Wow. Okay. So anybody can make a referral. So
yes.
Who is your ideal? Do you have an ideal client? Like when you say youth, what ages, again, break it down, make sure we're all clear. Yeah.
Okay, Lisa, I'll let you answer that.
It's really funny, and people laugh at me all the time, but I say, give me a bad kid. Whoever you're calling a bad kid, give them to me, because I don't believe in bad kids.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. There's been a couple cases that I've met with Lori and I said, Lori, I can't do this one. Mm-hmm. And she says, not a problem. This is right up my alley. Mm-hmm. So there isn't really anybody that we've gotten yet that we can't help. It's mm-hmm. just whether they're at that place yet. Yeah. And you never know until they get in. And that's just being honest. Most of the kids you can get along the road, but some you're going to miss on, and I hate it when that happens, but hopefully they'll learn something from having a contact. So we do have that. Also, we've got youth that we've closed that still call us. So they know that they have that support. And we do provide that support even after they're closed. Even if they just want to email and say, hey, I got a new puppy. Fabulous. You will always hear a positive response to a youth from me or Lori, because it may be the only positive they get that day, but they're going to get it from me. So,
yeah. I love,
Absolutely.
boy, right, how inspiring. And it also sounds like you guys work as a team.
Yes.
Oh, yes, yes. We talk every day, all day. So, yes.
Wow, wow, wow. So I'm going to ask this question because you said that you have had lots of stories of success, change, you meet people where they are. And sometimes, right, when people are in pre-contemplation, they might got to come to you a couple times before they decide that they're ready. And then it sounds like you, because it's a relationship, you really stay with people, and I like to think about that as a trauma-informed approach, right? Is that we don't break up with people just because they're done with service, that we're along for the journey. But I wonder, like, has COVID impacted your work? And if yes, what have you seen? Like, yeah, how has COVID impacted your work?
I know when I first started, we were kind of coming on the downside of it. It was still there, but it was not as intense. And, there was a decrease in referrals, I will say that. But with the referrals that we did get, we just adjusted. We met with them on Zoom, or we did phone check-ins, and we just tried our best to keep them engaged as much as possible. But there was no pressure to, have them try to come in, or, make them feel like they had to get uncomfortable potentially to make contact, or even to be able just to talk to somebody face to face. So we just adjusted with what we had to do. And it was frequent check-ins. It wasn't just that one time a week like it is now. Now during COVID, it was maybe 2 or 3 times a week that I was calling clients and saying, like, how are you? How are things going? Here's some homework or something that would keep the kids engaged, because we know how kids are. They need something to do, and so I just had to be very creative during COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you seeing, and Lisa, maybe you can finish and then answer this. Are you seeing sort of on this end of COVID more needs, a different complexity of needs? I know when I work with schools, they're talking about having youth who, just have far more complex needs, families who are much more vulnerable. Are you guys seeing that in your work?
We are seeing it. But it's kind of a double-edged sword, and I'm not sure how to answer it, because we've always had troubled families.
Yeah.
We just didn't always identify them or provide them the help that they were needed. And now it's able to be provided. So I think they're more of those families are known to us, if that makes any sense at all. And we're able to get out there. We don't, it's still a little bit closed off because of COVID still, but we are able to meet with them. Some of the kids do weekly check-ins at the office. It just depends on the youth. My whole thing is I'm not trying to get the family so put off by our agency that they don't want their youth to do the services. So if that's going to be the barrier, we can do phone check-ins. I've had kids that the phone got shut off, so they emailed me from school and let me know that the phone got shut off. Can we do something different? And we're always adjusting stuff.
Absolutely.
So that's part of meeting them where they're at, no matter when they're there. We just have to do that. So we do not go out to the houses. That's one thing that some people, that's a misconception people do have, is that we go out to the families' houses, and we don't do that. So, and one of the reasons I think is because the kids have to have some accountability for what they did. And I know it's not comfortable coming to the youth assessment center, but sometimes that's saying, look, this was serious. We have to do something about this. We're trying to divert you from the court system. This is one of the processes. So.
Gotcha. So I have a couple more questions. I want to shift in a second around like goals, aspirations, dreams. But my last question sort of is just because if I'm sitting at home and I'm listening to the process, you talk about this plans, right? And I want to make it clear. And it almost sounds like that they're individualized. It sounds like, things like that are restorative. I would wonder if you could say more about that. And then I am just thinking about the audience. Are there ways that volunteers, other community members could be involved in like support plans? So could you talk more about what, like, examples of plans? Because I'm hearing a couple things, but if I'm sitting at home and I'm like, I have an organization or a program or something, and I want to be involved in some restorative processes, are there ways community helps, or are you guys just sort of holding the fort alone?
Absolutely. We are always, we open our arms to the community. So if there's anyone that would like to volunteer, I actually have, as we move into the fall school semester, I have some potential U of I volunteers that may be coming in to work with the Youth Assessment Center. So all I say is just give us a call, reach out. And I think at the end of this, Karen, you'll have my contact information.
Yeah, absolutely.
So reach out to me. If I'm not available, Lisa's available. And we will have a discussion, because the thing about it is it takes a village, and that's our motto at YAC. It takes a village. We got the police officers, we got our stakeholders, we have community members, we have our schools. So whoever else is a part of that village, we open our arms to you. Please give us a call or email us.
Wow. Okay. So Lisa, can you describe some of the plans so that when people are listening to like what the village could offer, maybe they could be thinking, because I'm like brewing over here thinking, wow, it could be just an amazing opportunity for people to be involved in meaningful ways.
So one of the things that we do is called the Reflections Program. And I described it a little bit by helping them see how they have an effect on others. But another part of that program is watching videos with the youth and getting their take on what's actually going on and who is that affecting. How are we going to change a future if this is where our present is? So that's one of the programs, and that's just a short description. We also have peer court. We're doing our first peer court this next week, where peers from Lincoln's Challenge will come down and be our court, and then our youth presents their case, that if they had police involvement, maybe it was a second referral or a third referral, what's going on with them. The parents are there and they're able to give their take on the situation. And then the peer court comes back with things that they feel the youth should do to compensate for what they've done.
Yeah.
So that's another program. We have an anger management program, which Lori runs, and she does that. Some of them are on an individual one-on-one basis. Some of them are on Zoom. Some of them are in person. So it just depends on where that youth is to get that going. We also deal pretty closely with Cunningham Children's Families Stronger Together program, and we come up with plans together. So when they're bringing in a counseling unit and a mentoring unit, we have that going. We've been working with Terrence Alexander from Don Moyer's Boys and Girls Club to get that social worker, individual social worker, and family social worker aspect. So like I said, but it depends on where that youth and that family are as to what we put in place for them.
So you really are utilizing the village. So we have a similar tagline, because Tri says it takes a village to heal. And so
Yes.
It really seems like you're bringing the village together to heal. So there are a lot of opportunities, and I did not realize you were still doing peer jury. My daughter did peer jury, loved it. She, first of all, I gave her a chance to, get to know
Yeah.
some of the students at Lincoln Challenge, and, to also like just connect with some of her classmates in different and meaningful ways. So it was a really useful experience, because she got as
Great.
much from the experience as I'm sure that the youth participants. It was a very good learning experience for her. So very cool that you're still doing it. All right. Gosh, I'm gonna tell her, because I was like, I wasn't sure. So before I completely stop asking like historical questions, informational, like service linkage questions, something came up in the coalition meeting on Wednesday, and I knew you guys were gonna be on, so I thought maybe I would bring it up to you, and maybe we could just have a little bit of discussion. So at the coalition meeting, one of the things that Tracy Parsons and some of the officers talked about was just the amount of, I'm going to try to use like a non therapy word, but that there seems to be some youth and families, so not families, but definitely some youth not engaged in positive behavior. So not positive pro-social behaviors, right? So like the pop-up parties or the hanging out past curfew or all of those things. And I guess if we were I guess this is a perfect shift, but we're going to be thinking about what something like the Youth Assessment Center could be, how it could be used, right? Because they were trying to figure out like what a solution would look like beyond just sort of, locking up a bunch of kids, which we don't want to ever do as a community. What do you think? What are you guys thinking in terms of needs that you see? Like what could something that is prevention oriented? You're smiling because clearly you got ideas. Well, okay, I'm listening. All right.
Well, I just think the most, and Lisa jump in as well. I think the first most important thing is reaching out and seeing what's out there. The resources that are there in place. And with YAC, being around since 2013, if people don't know about us, they know now. Reach out to us, give us a call, and even if it's just a parent saying, maybe for just 30 days, if I could just have my child engage with a case manager and work with them once a week on anger management. And then that 30 days, me and the youth meet one-on-one for an anger management workbook. And we do homework together and study and talk about, triggers and coping skills. It's just a short interim way to say, hey, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to try to help out. If there's a parent who wants their child to, hey, I want them, they've been, not listening to me at home, they've been getting into trouble, they're not having a police contact, but they're on the verge of potentially having a police contact, I would like them to get into some programming. Call YAC, we can get them hooked up with the case manager, put them on a plan, and have them start attending reflections. So it's just early diversion as well as, we use court diversion, but early diversion as well to try to see what we can do to jumpstart the process of getting them where they need to get to before it gets to that point where there's a police contact, or before it gets to that point where now is your third referral and now you might have to go to JDC because YAC is not working for you now, or they don't refer you to YAC anymore. So those are just a few of the ideas I have. But I think the first thing is just reaching out and getting the help. And that's what we're here to do. Gotcha. Is there anything else, Lisa, you would want to add to that I might not have touched on?
With the curfew, with our station adjustments, we do put a curfew in. So every youth does have a curfew. And then those are supported by the police departments that make those referrals. So they will go out and do curfew checks on the youth. We try not to overwhelm the police departments because we know that they're really, really busy. And, but there's some youth that we really need to check up on because we're not sure if they're actually following what they need to be following. And they've been super about getting those done and getting them back to us.
And also our relationships too, Karen, I will add, being that we have MOUs and operation agreements with certain service agencies, and our relationship now with the Don Moyers Boys and Girls Club social worker, even if it's just like, hey, I want to make a phone call to YAC to see if there is anybody out there that you may know of that can assist me. We have operation agreements and MOUs that we have in place where we have those existing relationships to reach out and see how we can best assist the family. And so maybe that social worker that goes out and does home visits, which is something that we cannot do, we can get them hooked up too. So programming, pro-social, we will try our hardest to do what we can do to help.
Wow. Okay. So I would imagine, one of the things that you want families to hear is if you're concerned, like if you got a teenager in your household and it, you try to set some limits and boundaries, but for some reason it's just not sort of working. And that happens for a lot of different reasons because kids all have their own different temperaments, but don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help, because it doesn't make you a bad parent or an inadequate parent. It just sometimes you just need to sort of empower the village to sort of join you. And that you guys have an infrastructure to provide that support in a way that's consistent and predictable before it gets worse. So, right, an ounce of prevention. And if you're a provider in the community and you're noticing that a group of youth who have needs are sort of being under supported or kind of vulnerable in key ways, you're like, connect with us, collaborate with us, because you could offer a piece of the pie that could really provide an additional support that people don't have. So I hope people are hearing, like, asking for help is really, really important. And I can, it's probably not often, but there might be a youth out there, one or two, who is like, I am having problems, just sort of, I feel like I'm on the cusp of not being in control and not making right decisions. And it'd be nice to have a little bit more support, have the right skills, have a caring adult in my life. They could too reach out and sort of self-refer, if we would say, to get that village, get those connections, because it sounds like you're constantly building skills and building capacity in ways that maybe even classical therapy doesn't provide, because your approach seems to be really skill building.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Am I getting it right? Okay. All right.
Absolutely. I did want to add, we also provide support for the family. So I've had calls all summer long when it's just a parent that's kind of struggling with their kid. They don't necessarily want a case. They just want to talk to somebody and feel like they're not going crazy and that they're not alone. And we also provide that. So we've had a lot of that this summer.
Yeah, right. Because I think parenting is so challenging. And so often people believe like that you're supposed to figure it out. Like, and it's not that you don't need help and you don't need other supports. And I just don't, I think in this day and age, most of us need a little bit of the village to make it through.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, all right. I asked you the question. So if you were going to think about being hugely responsive, right, to address some of these critical needs, are there needs that you have that, what's the fantasy? Are there needs that you have? Are there people needs or resource needs, or where would you be and what else would you be doing? So, right, I've asked you like 4 questions. So let's start off. What are your needs? Or do you have any needs? Maybe you're the not-for-profit human service program that has no needs.
I would just say we're always open to collaboration. So if there's any service providers, agencies that, want to work together to, potentially learn more about how we can work together to best serve youth. Maybe from their perspective, maybe there's counseling or there's activities. I know a barrier for the summer with a lot of kids didn't have anything to do. They were bored. So, collaborating on when we have referrals that come through, we can put on those agreements. You have to attend blank, 3 or 4 times a week at this time, so I'm always looking personally for me, I'm always looking for agencies that I can collaborate with to continue to wrap arms around our families, not just our kids, but our parents as well. So anybody that, wants to reach out to Yak and talk to me about that, I'm all ears. I always am looking for more family to add to the list. So
Okay, all right. So that's one need. So
that's
if
one
you
need.
got a service and support and
Yes.
you want to collaborate with the Youth Assessment Center, they
Yes.
are willing and waiting to collaborate. I'm going to
Yes.
ask you the question that shows up in every human service space right now. How are you doing with like employees? Is there a need for staffing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Alright,
yes,
okay,
yes, yes.
okay.
We are, and like we talked about earlier, volunteers as well, but we are, if you are interested and you want to add your skill set to the Youth Assessment Center, always, you can apply, and we were looking for volunteers as well, if you'd be interested in coming in and volunteering your time to help out as well, so.
Well, I'm gonna pick that scab, right? So what's it like? What's your ideal candidate, right? Like who's a good fit? Because so what's it like to work with you, work at the Youth Assessment Center, and who's a good fit? What are you looking for?
We're honest, genuine people who want to help youth. And that's what we're looking for. Lori and I have come a long way to get together. We've known each other for years, and coming together has been great for both of us because we do have those goals. We were raised with a sense of community and responsibility for community. And a lot of people don't have that anymore. It's looking for a job. And this is not about a job. This is about helping heal our community, helping our youth, and build on that. I will say one of the things we do need is jobs for these youth. And I don't know if there's an incentive process from cities that if businesses are hiring youth from agencies, maybe even that are trying to help them, that they would get a break on something tax wise. I don't know. I'm throwing something out there to be considered because that's one of my passions. I have so many kids. Well, what am I going to do with my life? Nobody hires me. We go through the whole hiring process. I'll write a resume with them. They still can't get hired. They're like, nobody wants to hire me because I'm not 18. So, and there's a lot of kids that don't want to work fast food. So, it's finding that there's a lot of kids that want to work trades, that want to get in that doorstep, even if it's painting. They want to get in there, do something. And so if there's anybody out there that has jobs, please let us know.
Well, that would be really, again, when I was asking, like, how could people volunteer? I can't imagine that someone doesn't, have those kind of opportunities. I remember when we did wraparound, one of our favorite stories was we had a youth who wanted to go into automotive repair. And there was someone on his rap team that was actually a landlord who was like, I like to work on cars on the weekend. And so he kind of hired air quote, him to sort of work with him on cars. And so it built like this really amazing partnership. You would not think a landlord who was really at the rep meeting to talk about like rent would sort of hear a need and go, yeah, that seems like something I could do. And they stayed really connected together. So those were the kinds of village stories that always inspire me.
Yes.
That I don't think that people sometimes when they're like, I want to do something to address community violence. And sometimes it's I have a yard care thing, or I do a thing and I wouldn't mind spending time with kids and I could offer something because that's such a meaningful contribution.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else around needs?
I don't think I can think of anything else.
Okay,
Lisa, can you?
No, I think we kind of covered the whole globe on that one.
All right. So in a couple years, what are you hoping? What's the wish for the Youth Assessment Center in like 3 years? What do you think is different? What will you hope to see?
I really hope to see some of our youth that have graduated the program
Yeah,
come back and volunteer.
Mhm.
yes,
That's really what I would like to
that'd be
see.
great. Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
And Lori, what about you? What's your
Um,
3-year plan?
so we're getting so many referrals, and now we have a team of like 6 or 7 case managers.
Okay.
And we're just operating at full capacity. And it's just it's bigger. It's growing every year. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's more agencies that are collaborating, and there's more job workforce programs out there for youth. And the list just goes on. It just continues to multiply. So that's what I would like to see.
And when I hear you articulate your vision for all of those people who are like thinking about addressing community violence, it seems like if there were a bigger investment in building infrastructure in programs like the Youth Assessment Center, the deeper end, for lack of a better word, of youth who have been under supported and underserved for a long time, like more of you show up in the back end, and it's harder to correct if we had gotten them in the front end when they
Yes.
needed just a little bit more support, a little bit more structure, a little bit more love, a more consistent, predictable adult relationship.
Yes.
Not because that they're bad parents necessarily. It's just because sometimes you just don't connect with the parent that you have, or your parent is under-resourced or under-supported. And if we could just invest in village building and capacity building
Yes.
opportunities, right? It would mean, right, fewer dollars would be on that end, and
Yes.
more would be in building the village. I didn't ask this, and there are a couple more questions I want to ask, but do you serve the whole county? Because I don't know if we talked about that. Because when I asked about the ideal youth, do you serve like everybody?
We serve all of Champaign County
Okay.
and youth from 10 to 17.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I did not ask that explicit question. So 10.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you get many 10-year-olders?
Not often. Most
Okay.
often we get kids between the ages of 13 to 17. We have some 12-year-olds, right, Lisa? A few
Yes.
12-year-olds there, but mostly between 13 and 17.
Okay. All right.
We've had a couple 10-year-olds.
Couple,
A
yeah.
little more difficult to work with, honestly, because it's just harder to see. They're at that age where you don't know what they're moving towards, because they're so, the world is mine, and they haven't got that definition yet, which way they're going. So they've been a little bit harder, I think, for me. Give me those bad teens. I'm okay with them. They keep me on my toes.
Yeah, your 10-year-olders, just developmentally have fewer kind of cognitive skills. And when you're using sort of cognitive strategies, they're like, I am not black and white. There's some logic that you're asking me to do, and I'm magical thinking. And, and no, I'm not empathetic because I'm a 5th grader and I'm pretty selfish, right? Like,
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
Oh, wow. So a couple more questions. So putting your advocacy hat on, I know you're doing a lot of work on behalf of youth and families who've been impacted by systems, right? Like juvenile justice, mental health, child welfare, or education. What would you say is sort of missing? Because like Lisa, you articulated, this job piece seems to be missing, but is there anything else that you think is missing from the service and support array that would make your efforts to do prevention better?
I feel like we need more mentoring. I struggle with finding, so some kids, there's 2 things I find. Either they have been in counseling for a very long time, had a bad experience, not doing it, not interested, or, they're just like, I've never done it before, but it sounds like you're saying that I have a problem. There's this stigma to it. So I don't want to go. And then I've even had parents that forced their kids to go, and it ended up not working out because the kid just wasn't invested in it from the beginning. But a mentor or a buddy system
Mhm.
Somebody that's just like, hey, how you doing? I'm checking on you today. Or hey, let's go to this hip hop camp together and I'll meet you up there and then afterwards we'll go get lunch. Like, I think I feel like sometimes that's just a better fit, and I feel like I struggle personally with finding mentors in Champaign that would be willing to lend themselves in some capacity. I don't know. And maybe that's just something I need to do more research on, but it's been a struggle for me sometimes to find mentoring services.
Yeah. So, that trusting, consistent, adult,
Yeah.
predictable relationship. And
Yeah.
the youth that you are serving need somebody who's really going to be meaningfully involved, right? Like that
Yeah.
30-minute at lunch won't be enough dosage and intensity.
Yeah.
You need somebody to really make a committed relationship. I love that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything else? Yeah.
The other thing about that is we have waiting lists in our community for
Yes.
everything.
Mm.
And anybody who's dealt with a teenager, they can't even stand in line for a movie, let alone stay on a waiting list for a month or 2 months
Yeah.
to get somebody to help them. So I
Mhm.
guess it's not just getting the service, but getting it in a timely manner.
Yes.
Working with youth is so important.
Yes.
You've got that small window of time to get in there
Mhm.
and really do this good work. And
Yeah.
it's hard to get it going 2 months down the road.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
especially if you're doing prevention, because the longer you're
Yes.
bleeding, the more it becomes contaminated. I always think about the
Yeah.
health metaphor. It can't let us, toe be infected for a little bit of time and be like, well, in a couple months, we'll get to taking care of the toe because the
Right.
next thing we're going to have to do is amputate you. Right.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. And I do a lot of modeling for kids
Mm.
so that they can provide their own advocacy for themselves. Because I think that's really important. And honestly, that comes from my childhood. So if I would have had somebody advocating on my behalf or known how to advocate for myself, I would have been able to take different paths in my life. Not that the paths I took were all that bad, they got me here, but some youth want to be at a different place and they don't know how to get there. So learning how to do that and modeling that behavior for them sometimes helps them along their way, or if they need to make a phone call, sitting there with them.
Yeah.
So you don't even need to say anything as long as you're right there. It gives them the strength to learn how to do that themselves, because you never know if somebody's going to be advocating for you, and you do have to advocate for yourself.
Yeah. The
Absolutely.
real resiliency building. I love it.
Yes.
I'm excited. Again, we're about to wrap up. One final question, and then we'll do our closing round. If we're going to say something directly to parents, wearing your advocacy hat, what would you say directly, or do you have a message directly to parents who might be listening and hearing, and, what would you say?
I would say first off that you're not alone. And I get it from a personal standpoint, being a parent. Sometimes you just feel like, am I the only one that's going through this homework dilemma, or, this teenage funk that seems to be never ending every single week. So I just want them to know that you're not alone. There is support out here for you. And just, if you make the phone call, if you reach out, if you email, whatever way, if you want to come in, some people do better in person. Our doors are open and we will not turn you away. Even if we can't personally serve you because we don't have the capacity within the things that you need, we will get you linked up where you need to go. And so, my thing is just to let them know that we are here to support you and you're not alone.
Wow. Okay.
Sorry. My work phone was
I'm sorry. Yes, our phones are ringing.
No, it's not. It's that time of day. People are like, you've been away from supporting me for a little bit.
The only thing I would really add to that, Lori, is to say our services are free.
Yes.
So don't be afraid to call. It's not going to cost you anything. We get
Yes.
this.
Wow.
So I can't get it to shut off. Sorry, guys.
No.
You're fine.
But our services are free, and we do try to do the best that we can for each family individually.
Absolutely.
And that you meet people where they are. So families, if you're listening, if you just have questions or concerns, if you kind of want to know where to go for help, if you have a youth and you're kind of just worried, I mean, that's why the word assessment, I know people, there's some stigma with assessment, but the way that we kind of figure out what you need is we kind of listen. That's all an assessment is sort of deep,
Yeah.
intentional listening.
Yes.
To really hear you. So they have said, Lori and Lisa have said, it's not cookie cutter. They're not sort of, again, they don't have a prescribed notion of what your family, your kiddo needs. They're really going to make sure that it's individualized, that it's personalized, it's reflective of your culture, and what you
Mhm.
believe. And they will journey with you, helping bring in the resources to really respond. And if you're somebody who has a resource,
Come to us.
collaborate, reach out,
Come on.
because there is a need for you. So, as we close out, it has been just such a great, I really have appreciated you guys taking
Yes.
time. And clearly they are busy people with lots of demands on them. But are there closing thoughts, words, things that we did not talk about that you're like, I don't want to end this without saying this?
I will just say that, again, first off, Karen, again, thank you so much for this opportunity. Me and Lisa love to talk about YAC, and we love to just let the community know there's still some people that don't know who we are. So to be able to do this today really means a lot to us. And I will just say that my goal also is for us to get into the schools more. So my goal is to physically be there and assist with on-site referrals. And we're starting with the high schools. So, if anyone's listening out there and you have a high schooler that goes to a certain school and, you've heard about us today and you want to pitch that to the principal or school social worker, we can definitely be on site to help out with that. And lastly, I will just say that we are super appreciative of everyone that's been involved with helping YAC over the years. We so enjoy and appreciate the state's attorney's office and our police officers and our school referrals and anyone else that walks through the door. And again, we just continue to encourage you to reach out if you ever need anything. We will figure out a way.
Love it. Oh, I'm inspired. Lisa, do you have closing thoughts?
What Lori's saying is really who we are. When you come in the door, you'll see it. When you talk to us anywhere, this is how we feel about the program. This is how we feel about the career path that we're both on. So we are genuine, we are open and honest about it, and we welcome anyone to come in and see what we have to offer, bring a family with you. We're great with that.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And if you're a human service professional out there and you're like, I want to do work that is meaningful, that's a part of a community, that is impactful with a team of people who are committed to making a difference, and where you actually get a chance to see impact. Because sometimes when you're in the deep end, you don't necessarily see like what you want to see, because it feels like you're like trudging through molasses. But you actually can see inspirational stories of hope and change and transformation. So if you want to join them, when the show airs, that I know that we'll have some information on. So do you want to like do a quick phone number where people can find you? And then I know I'll have the PowerPoint on our Facebook, so I'll make sure that it gets added there so that people can also get the information.
Absolutely. So again, the Youth Assessment Center is open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. and Saturdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Right, Lisa? Did I get Saturday right? Okay. Yes. And our number is 217-239-5933. Again, that's 217-239-5933.
Thank you so much. So the Tri
you.
Show is back. What a perfect back, sort of back to school conversation. The timing couldn't be better, and loving our collaboration. So stay safe and well. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Karen.
Bye-bye.
Bye.